Drug policy has been debated in Australia and around the world for decades, but the debate went to another level on the 2nd of June 2011 when about 20 leaders from around the world, members of the Global Commission on Drug Policy, met in New York where they held a press conference, and they said that the war on drugs had been an abject failure and it was time to have a discussion about a plan B. What else could we be doing to manage the problem of drugs better than drug prohibition? Now, there were some very important people at that meeting: Kofi Annan, former UN Secretary General, the former presidents of 5 major countries, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Switzerland included, and Sir Richard Branson, the head of Virgin Airlines, and many others. And since then, the number of former world leaders, and including now some current world leaders, have joined the Global Commission on Drug Policy. There are almost 40 world leaders in the organisation now. And the entry of the Global Commission on Drug Policy has really transformed the debate. We've now seen in the last few years major changes. People are no longer just talking about change, they're actually doing it. So in November 2012, the voters in Colorado and Washington states in the United States, a majority supported taxing and regulating cannabis. And those 2 states started taxing and regulating cannabis in 2014. 2 other states, Oregon and Alaska, and also the District of Columbia in the United States, voted in the same way for taxing and regulating cannabis in 2014, and no doubt they will start soon. Uruguay, Geneva, Jamaica, and other parts of the world now are moving down that same path. We also saw in 2013, New Zealand had a debate about regulating the new psychoactive substances. The minister introducing this bill into the Parliament talked about untested drugs in an unregulated market as being the crux of the problem. And indeed, that is the crux of the problem. 119 members of the New Zealand Parliament voted for the new psychoactive substances bill, 1 voted against. And New Zealand started regulating new psychoactive substances on the 18th of July 2013, and they continue doing that for 10 months, and that scheme has now been suspended while they are making changes to the assessment process. But when it was suspended, the scheme seemed to have improved the situation in New Zealand. 40 drugs that had been tested and were considered to have low risk were now available, and the number of outlets had been reduced, and the outlets now were licensed and controlled. A big improvement. Unfortunately, New Zealand couldn't continue that process, that legislation, while the assessment process was not performing as well as it needed to. But New Zealand says they're going to come back to that. So we're now at a stage before the United Nations General Assembly Special Session on Drugs, UNGAS, is going to be held in New York in April 2016, and the debate will ramp up to another high level. We're seeing more and more countries admit that what we're doing doesn't work, more and more countries saying, let's look at our options. It's not an easy question, but it's an important one, and I hope you'll support it. Thank you.